Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Football Podcast. It is me, Joey P. Joe Pisapia. It's time to buy and sell. It's time to make some trades, and we're going to make some deals here with some running backs, some wide receivers, and we're going to talk about some of those wide receivers to buy low and sell high. To help me do it, of course, is Andrew Erickson, Mr. Big Pot Energy himself, who has a t-shirt here on our shop, and I still do not. I don't know why that is. We've got to fix that right away. And Brandon Murchison from Roto Baller. You can follow him on the X machine as well over at Roto Superstar. You are a Roto Superstar, and it's great for having you on the show here, Brandon. I know it's Halloween. You got any big Halloween plans here with the kiddos, or what do you got going on?
No plans for Halloween tonight. My daughter has passed the age of wanting to do Halloween, but I do have my bowling league that I have to attend tonight, so I will be at the bowling alley knocking some pins down.
The question is, are you dressing? Does people dress up for the bowling alley excursion?
No, not typically. We come in our bowling attire and ready to go.
Okay, all right. So just take it a little serious.
They dress up as winning bowlers. That's how they dress up.
I definitely do.
I mean, like, it's right there. You could dress up like the guys from The Simpsons, like the Pin Pals. You could do the whole thing. That would be very fun. Erickson, you're young enough still probably to get candy if you go out for Halloween, right?
Yeah.
I mean, have you seen this baby face?
That's what I mean. Like, if Andrew Erickson shows up at my doorstep, I'm just giving him candy. It's not even Halloween. All right, let's talk about some of the players that we want to move on from and acquire here at the wide receiver position. And of course, don't forget about Trade Central, the place where you can identify team strengths and weaknesses and use the trade finder, the trade analyzer, all the tools over at My Playbook. Sync your leagues today. Download the My Playbook app. It's free. It's amazing. Sync your leagues. There's a million teams have already synced. Make sure you're one of them. Make sure you're getting the best tools on the planet working for you, or go to fantasypros.com/myplaybook to get them as well. All right, let's continue on here with the show, and let's talk a little bit about some wide receivers that could be potentially on the move in a lot of fantasy teams, because the most traded wide receiver this past week was Calvin Ridley, and Calvin Ridley has been in a bit of an enigma. Certainly a tease at the beginning of the year. Things looked really good. Then all of a sudden things went really quiet. Maybe a bounce back. We'll see. But Brandon, let's talk about Calvin Ridley. Is that a wide receiver you want to buy, sell, or hold in week 9?
That is definitely a guy that I'm going to sell if I can sell him. I think with him being on the list of most traded over the past week, I think that's more of name value than anything. Just primarily based on the fact that Calvin Ridley, after that week 1 explosion, since then is been really disappointing to that fact. He's only been he's had one wide receiver, one finish over the course of the last 7 games. Is currently sitting at wide receiver 58 and target share at 19.7%. It's not great. He's in that log jam with the Jacksonville Jaguars wide receiver trio. Remains to be seen once Zay Jones comes back what his role is truly going to be, because we did see he performed rather well with Zay Jones in the lineup. So that's even another player to kind of take away from the pie that's in front of him right now. And for me, I can't buy into that at this moment.
Coming off of a game, 6 catches for out of 10 targets for 83 yards. Erickson, he's got the bye this week, which is an interesting situation too, where a lot of teams have, kind of scuffling, looking for bodies, trying to stay relevant here. Is Ridley somebody you could take advantage of right now, get on your roster? And then they've got San Fran, Tennessee, Houston, Cincinnati coming up after that.
I think for me, he's still someone I'm trying to sell. I think I've talked about this in the fantasy football forecast that I write every single week with the Jaguars wide receivers, is just sell them after they have big games. Like, because we're seeing it flip-flopping every single week, where it's like, oh, Kirk has a big game, and then Ridley has a big game. Zay Jones is going to come back probably after the bye week. He'll have a couple big games. Like, the only guy that's like super consistent every week is Evan Ingram. He can't score touchdowns. So Trevor Lawrence, as good as we all thought that he could be, hasn't really created this like offensive explosion for fantasy, because the guy that's scoring all the touchdowns is my guy, Travis Etienne. So he's the league winner of the whole Jacksonville offense, and these receivers are kind of like hanging out a little bit behind. So if you can sell high off Ridley after a pretty strong performance, 10 targets, a lot of yards, didn't score, but I think that's what I would try to do. And same thing with Kirk. Like, Kirk would be the guy I would like to buy low on, because he's coming off the worst game among the Jaguars pass catchers on the bye week. So, and again, if you acquire them when they're cheaper, sell them when they're more valuable, I think that's just really the move to make. But honestly, I don't have to have any Jaguars wide receivers rest of the season. Like, I'm cool with that.
All right, let's take a look into the future here. Adam Thielen's been really good this year, right? Last week, Still had 8 catches for 72, but just 11 half PPR points, no touchdown there. Adam Thielen has had trouble playing full seasons, and I know this is Adam Thielen has given us more than we possibly could have imagined. Who would you rather have rest of season here, Erickson? Adam Thielen here or Calvin Ridley? This is like the ultimate buy low, sell high scenario, talking about two guys at different stages in their career, but certainly different performances that they've turned in their report card in 2023.
I mean, Adam Thielen's eating all the Halloween candy Halloween night. You feel great.
Yeah.
And then he's also the next day, Adam Thielen, after you ate all that Halloween candy, now you don't feel so good. So I'm moving off Adam Thielen. Like you just talked about, it's like unimaginable how great he has been.
Yeah.
Yes. And what does that mean? It's going to stop. It's not going to continue, even though he came back strong after the bye week. We just don't see rookie quarterbacks create situations like this that are sustainable long term. And a lot of Thielen's production in the early part of the season was in the fourth quarter, was in garbage time. He's catching touchdowns in garbage time. Like that's not going to continue every single week, especially we saw the Panthers win a game. Like the Panthers have winnable games coming up on their schedule.
One too. I know you're not going to victory lap it, but I'll lap it for you. You did call it. That was you.
So I am going to just bet on Trevor Lawrence in the situation, and that the touchdowns do go away from Etienne and will go to one of the receivers. And again, you did mention Ridley does have some decent matchups coming up too, so I'll take Ridley.
Murchison, you said Ridley was wide receiver 54. Is that what you said?
Wide receiver 58.
58, pardon me. I was giving him too much credit. So you want wide receiver 58, Calvin Ridley rest of season, or wide receiver 8, Adam Thielen?
Yeah, it's a tough call because I think you're really kind of one in one hand, one in half of the other. It's just, Erickson made a great point, is you're kind of waiting for that cliff to come with Adam Thielen at this point in time. You feel like that it's such a position where he can't sustain this type of production year long, but where we're seeing it with Calvin Ridley, it's just, who knows what you're getting out of him week in and week out right now. You're banking on hoping that he's going to be a startable asset on your roster, and by name alone, you're going to put him into your starting lineup each week. And a lot of times so far, we've seen so far this year, he's been an albatross, and he's just not done well for you. Whereas Adam Thielen, I would probably take Adam Thielen because at this point in time, I know the production that I'm getting, and when the wheels fall off, I should be prepared for it at that point in time based on my roster construction.
All right. How about Joe Mixon or Calvin Ridley? Which side of that deal would you want to be on, Brandon? Because I know Mixon's one of your buy low RBs.
I would take Joe Mixon for sure in this aspect. It feels like you're getting two players that are going in opposite directions as far as opportunity share. Joe Mixon, his workload kind of has maintained throughout the year, even though the production has not been there. I think we're going to start to see a little bit of crescendo with Joe Mixon's production, where that's going to increase on a weekly basis. Whereas, again, like I just mentioned with Calvin Ridley, it's just week in and week out. You don't know what's going to be there. Give me the guy that I can count on week in and week out. Erickson,
you co-sign on that?
Yeah. I want Joe Mixon. I want the running back over. Ridley, best case scenario is just going to be a wide receiver 2, like the rest of the season. That's kind of what I see with him. And I would rather have a guy that has an RB1 workload that, could run hot on touchdowns.
All right, let's try a multiplayer trade here. Calvin Ridley and Raheem Mostert for Keenan Allen. What side of this deal do you want to be on, Erickson?
Give me the old guy. Not Raheem Mostert.
Finally.
I gotta be specific. I gotta be specific here
because these many months. Finally,
because you're giving me three old guys here, actually. So I'm gonna take the grizzled veteran. The grizzled veteran when it comes to Keenan Allen.
Good answer. For you, Merch, same thing. You want the best player in the deal, or do you want the bulk of Mostert and Ridley?
Yeah, I think I'm going to co-sign on that. Give me the Keenan Allen. He's coming off a couple bad games, sure, but I think we're seeing a guy that could sustain production throughout the year, whereas Calvin Ridley, we've mentioned it ad nauseum at this point, and Raheem Mostert, yes, he's been a surprise so far in 2023, but we're waiting on the return of Devin Achane, and that's going to muddy the situation in that Dolphins backfield, and I think that's an excellent opportunity to use those two players to get a Keenan Allen.
Yes, it's also an excellent opportunity to be outside with friends and fire pits in the fall and all that fun alliteration there, and to have a cold Miller Lite in your hand. It's a perfect time to do all those things. Miller Lite is just 96 calories, and it tastes like beer. It's perfectly brewed for everything that fall has to offer, and with a Miller Lite in your hands, whether it be fall, whether it be winter, it doesn't matter. It's always the right time for a Miller Lite, and it tastes like Miller time right now in the NFL. You could be out there right now watching some of the games out on, tailgate seasons here too. It's a perfect time for Miller Lite. If you're just hanging out with the kiddos in the backyard, crack open a cold Miller Lite where everyone's out there hanging around. Maybe you have a couple Miller Lites and you decide, hey, I could still go out there and play football with the kids. And then you pull a hamstring and you sit back down and you have a second Miller Lite because you realize exactly what's going on and that you're old, like Andrew Erickson says everyone is. But to get Miller Lite delivered right to your door, visit MillerLite.com/FantasyPros. That's the MillerLite.com/FantasyPros. That's how you're going to get that Miller Lite right to your house, or you can pretty much get it anywhere that sells beer, but we want you to celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 96 calories, 3.2 carbs per every 12 ounces. Miller time, baby. Get your Miller Lite going, especially, kiddos are out there trick-or-treating, crack open a cold Miller Lite and put it in is it a koozie or a cozy? I don't know which one it is.
Koozie.
It's a koozie. It sounds good when Murchison says it. When Murch says it, it sounds good. Koozie. Like, it sounds good when if I say it, koozie. I don't know, it sounds not
sounds
good.
Wrong.
It sounds wrong.
Yeah.
He says it sounds charming. I say it sounds wrong. Let's talk about DeVonta Smith, a guy who had a good game last week. Finally, I know people have been trying to get out of the DeVonta Smith business. Erickson, buy, sell, or hold DeVonta Smith in this scenario here, because it looks like we're kind of falling into that same trap of last year where people started to get out of the business of DeVonta Smith and they regretted it down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely a buy before last week, before we finally had like a bigger game, but still, like, he's still in the shadow of AJ Brown. Like, the AJ Brown train is not going to stop anytime soon because the dude is just an absolute monster and he's clearly the alpha in this offense. And the thing that I was warning people about Smith last year was he didn't turn to a wide receiver one until Dallas Goedert got hurt. So when you're seeing that there's 3 top pass catchers in this offense that are all healthy, Smith is going to be more inconsistent from a week-to-week basis. So for me, if he's viewed more as a player that you can sell high on off of a big game like he had, scoring a touchdown, I would sell high on DeVonta Smith, actually, is how I would approach it, because look, the connection right now with Brown is, it's just on fire right now between him and Jalen Hurts, and he's just unstoppable. Yeah. So, and I just don't think it's going to stop.
Remember when the Titans used to have AJ Brown on their team?
He literally made Ryan Tannehill look good. Like, Ryan Tannehill was breaking all these passer ratings. It was like the top 2 passer ratings: Patrick Mahomes, Ryan Tannehill. It's like, why is this like this? Because AJ freaking Brown, man.
All right, DeVonta Smith for you, Murchison. Buy, sell, or hold?
Let me get into the DeVonta Smith business. He's definitely a guy that I would look to acquire right now. Erickson did mention last year, that stretch run, the last 6 weeks, he was putting up wide receiver 1 type numbers. But then, of course, we're seeing right now with AJ Brown and this monstrous streak that he's on, you have to figure that there's going to be a situation at some point that's going to start to fade a little bit as defensive coordinators around the league start to adjust. They get things on film. We need to double coverage over here, shade a guy over the top on AJ Brown, do something to limit AJ Brown. I think that's something that's going to come down the pike eventually. They're not going to immediately take away AJ Brown whatsoever, but I think it's going to open up opportunities for more single coverage to where it's going to roll Jalen Hurts' eyes to the other side of the field, and it's going to open up those opportunities for DeVonta Smith to where he can kind of level off back into that wide receiver 2 that a lot of us were expecting him to be this year.
All right, let's put some deals on the board right now. DeVonta Smith for George Pickens. Which side of that deal you want to be on, Merch?
Oh man, that's right in the gut.
That's right. That's why I put these together.
I think I want to take George Pickens. I think there's some upside there, especially from a touchdown aspect with Deontay Johnson coming back, open coverage, a little bit more as far as shots down the field. I think there's a little bit more upside there.
All right, especially Kenny Pickett. Hopefully, we'll see how that rib injury heals up, but hopefully he'll be okay.
He's not playing this. He's not
playing this week, but we hope he plays again. Erickson, DeVonta Smith, or Pickens? What side for you?
So it's weird. So we were disagreeing on the buying or selling DeVonta Smith, but I actually like DeVonta Smith more in this particular deal. Like Pickens, I am concerned about because we saw his target share nuked when Deontay Johnson has come back into the lineup. And I think that when we see with DeVonta Smith, it's like, I think he has more upside because there is a chance that AJ Brown or Dallas Goedert does suffer an injury, and then he's a locked and loaded wide receiver 1. Whereas George Pickens, he was in the wide receiver 1 chair while Deontay Johnson was missing games. Like, you could argue that he already had his peak performance. Like, he was already performing as a wide receiver 1 essentially, and now Deontay's back. So I expect his production to dip as the season progresses, especially with the Steelers offense having its problems. Kenny Pickett's banged up. So I actually like DeVonta Smith.
What about
Pickens.
David Montgomery for DeVonta Smith? What side, Erickson, for you on that one?
I like the buying David Montgomery right now. Again, everyone loves Gibbs, and it's like, you know what? It doesn't matter if you love Gibbs, because all I care about is how Dan Campbell feels about Gibbs and Montgomery. And everything we've seen from Dan Campbell says he loves Montgomery more than Gibbs. So I'm going to buy Montgomery.
I already know how Merch feels about this one. It's definitely the Montgomery side. So I'm going to pile up some players. Here we go again. DeVonta Smith for Devon Achane, who's still on his way back, and Josh Downs, who's been really good these last few weeks. Merch, what side of this deal you want? You want the Achane Downs upside? All that youth? Erickson? Oh, he's thinking about it. DeVonta Smith, what side, Merch, for you?
Yeah, give me all that youth with the Achane and Josh Downs side there.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, let's look at it from the Josh Downs perspective, too, with Gardner Minshew at quarterback. We've seen he's been absolutely on fire with Minshew at quarterback. He's putting up better numbers than DeVonta Smith has been putting up, and I think that that's a sustainability for Josh Downs moving forward, and putting into the deal Devin Achane, who, when he's healthy, we've seen he's putting up RB1 numbers. Yeah, all day long, I'm going to take those two players.
Erickson, the last pile-up deal was all old guys. This is all young guys, so you can't shake your way out of this one. Which side do you want to be on, Smith or the Achane downside?
I mean, I'm taking the Achane downside.
Okay.
I mean, Smith or Achane, I think, could be a league winner when he comes back. Like, I'm not a believer in Raheem Mostert. And, Brandon mentioned it's like Josh Downs and DeVonta Smith have been basically putting up like the same production. Like, they've both been doing the same thing. So it's like, what's the difference? But all I do is get this rookie running back that is faster than anybody else on planet Earth. So I'll take the Achane side.
All right, let's talk about some top buy low and sell high guys. We'll start with the buy lows, and the Uber Eats player we'd give up almost anything for. Brandon Murchison, that player for you is Jaylen Waddle. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, with Waddle, we've seen he's been banged up early on in the season, and the Miami Dolphins offense has been clicking nonetheless with him, being banged up and kind of the opportunity share being a little bit on the lower side in the earlier stages of the year. Whereas here recently, the last 2 weeks, we've started to see him become more involved in the offense, which is a good encouraging sign. For me, that's definitely a buying opportunity that I would like to be in on. We saw this last week. He gets 7 receptions and a touchdown in the game against New England, over 100 yards. Possibly a sign of things to come. We saw Waddle was definitely a guy that was putting up consistent numbers throughout most of 2022. I think this is going to be a situation getting down the stretch and into the fantasy playoffs. Waddle's a guy that you're going to want on your roster with this Miami Dolphins offense.
All right, so Jaylen Waddle, the Uber Eats player we give up almost anything for, and you can get food from your favorite restaurants plus groceries and other essentials delivered straight to your front door with Uber Eats this football season. Stay planted on your couch and get anything, well, almost anything you need for game day by ordering on the Uber Eats app. Uber Eats, the official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Alcohol in select markets. Product availability may vary by region. See app for details. See Erickson for his buy low wide receiver. Who is it, Andrew?
For me, it's DK Metcalf for the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, Metcalf is like on the cusp of like this like eruption game. Like he's getting all the high value touches and targets in the Seahawks passing game. He had 14 targets last week. He only caught 5 for 67 yards. He also had 5 red zone targets, over 150 air yards. And this was the usage he was seeing before he missed the game with the rib injury. So maybe he's still dealing with that a little bit. That's kind of limited his production. They've had a couple tough matchups as well, but after they play the Ravens this week, it's Commanders, Rams, 49ers, Cowboys, 49ers again. Like, the Seahawks are in a really good spot. They're trying to make a run. They're out making trades for real-life purposes to try to take down the NFC West, with the 49ers kind of falling out of favor. They have 2 games against the 49ers, so this NFC West is going to go down to the wire. I think Metcalf's going to be a huge part of it as the alpha in this passing game. He has 8+ targets in 3 of his last 4 games. So with Lockett, getting older, JSN, they're still kind of limiting his role. Like, he's still not a full-time player, beside the fact he's catching some touchdowns. I think the touchdowns are going to revert back to Metcalf sooner rather than later. So this is a prime time to buy on DK Metcalf.
All right, Erickson, give me a potential sell-high wide receiver. Let me guess. It's going to be somebody who probably scored 3 touchdowns last week, and it's probably somebody over the age of 35.
You are correct. Ding, 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 ding. It is DeAndre Hopkins for the Tennessee Titans. If you have DeAndre Hopkins, You were gifted the opportunity of a lifetime because of Will Levis. Take advantage of it. You need to sell DeAndre Hopkins ASAP because what they did in that game is not sustainable whatsoever. You know who punted more than the Titans last week? Jets, Giants. Those are the only teams that punted more than the Tennessee Titans did last week. So when you look at the highlights, it's, oh my God, this offense is so great. Like, this is going to be great.
Oh my God, I can't believe the Atlanta secondary is so bad in leaving him open. The one guy you can't let beat you. And I apologize, DeAndre. You're 31 years old. I was just being facetious there. Erickson quickly approaching 30 as well. But you're right. If you can't just look at the stats there, you have to look at what happened in the circumstances of those touchdowns because they were absurd, some of them.
Yep. Yeah, and the fact that he didn't even command that high of a target share in the offense. Like, he only had 6 targets. He just had to catch 3 of them for touchdowns. And they were all long touchdowns. And then one of them that wasn't a long touchdown was a red zone score that they got in the red zone because of a turnover. Like, they didn't even get to the red zone because of Levis. So the fact of the matter, too, is the Titans are a team that plays much better at home. We talked about this on the Betting Pro show. Titans, you want to ride them when they're at home. When they play on the road, they are horrible. You know what the next 3 games they're playing? On the road. Fade DeAndre Hopkins, trade him now, thank me later.
Okay, Merch, who would you like to get rid of at wide receiver?
I, on the other hand, am going to get rid of a very youthful wide receiver who's coming off a very good stretch of games, and that's Jordan Addison. Might be a little bit more of a controversial take, but also factor in now the Kirk Cousins injury. So it might lead into a little bit tougher road to hoe when it comes to trying to trade him off,
right?
Because of that aspect. But I think there's some fantasy managers out there that would see what he's done throughout the season at this point. He's only had 2 games this year where he's not scored a touchdown through 8 weeks. So you can use that to your advantage to sell to someone that's looking for some upside at the position. Keep in mind, too, we're going to see what Justin Jefferson may look like coming back. Will he come back on time? Will he maybe stay away? I think that's something to kind of keep in mind, too. But with Justin Jefferson coming back, you obviously would figure Jordan Addison's opportunity share is going to come down. Those scoring opportunities might be a little bit limited as well based on the quarterback change for the Vikings. So for me, if there's an opportunity to sell him at a high point right now to someone else in your league, that is something that I would really entertain.
You think they bring in a veteran, somebody else here in the next few days in Minnesota?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's going to be something where they're talking about that they want to stay the course. I know Monday Night Football, they were talking about they might stay the course with Jaron Hall and Nick Mullins, but let's be honest, that was, we're just saying that just to say it.
You know who the veteran's going to be? It's going to be Trey Lance. Mr. Trey Lance.
Oh, how many times can we trade Trey Lance in this season? That'd be fun.
Trust me,
I'm here for that.
Let's move off
Talk about must-see TV. I'm here for that. Let's see that. But yeah, I think, Merch makes a great point, which is, of course, Addison's value has hit a rock here. But it does have more value possibly than the next time we see him. So it might be impossible to move off him after this. So this is the time where you try to get what you can potentially and move on from that. Let's move on to our listener mailbag, a little 3 and out here, fantasypros.com/chat. Free to join. These questions straight from our Discord. First one from Will Bayless. I got offered Thielen and Javonte from Mixon and DK Metcalf. All the guys we've talked about today. Should I take it? What do you think, Merch?
No, I'm going to hold strong. I want to keep Mixon and DK Metcalf. Metcalf, of course, as Erickson just talked about, as far as a buying opportunity there, I think you're looking at a similar situation at running back between Mixon and Javonte Williams, but you're taking a step back with Thielen in this proposal. So I would stay the course with the 2 guys on the roster.
Erickson, Lad96 wants to know, would you trade Ramondre and DK for Kupp? What side of this deal do you want to be on?
I think that I would probably prefer just getting the best player in the deal, which is Cooper Kupp. But there's obviously some more ambiguity added here. There's risk because of the Stafford injury, where the Rams going to be at. They have their bye week coming up still. So it depends on what your roster is and how many wins you need right now. But like in a vacuum, I'm going to take Cooper Kupp, especially with Puka also banged up a little bit.
Last one, Halloween-inspired question. Favorite costume, favorite thing you dressed up as a kid for Halloween, or maybe as an adult too, Erickson. I don't know. Sexy nurse, one of those things. One of those costumes. I love that every costume is always like sexy this now. Like that's what it has to be. Erickson, what do you think? What was your favorite childhood or adult Halloween costume ever?
I think that one year me and my brother, we went as Pokemon, and I was Pikachu, and he was some other.
Can we get that picture for the
Pokemon
podcast for the YouTube? I want that on social media, please.
It was me and every other second grader dressed as Pokemon, because that's all that we were obsessed with, and kids today are even obsessed with Pokemon.
They
so
are.
I like how the tradition continues.
But that's because I'm old. Merch, for you, what was your favorite youth or adult Halloween costume you ever had?
Well, let's be honest. There's some adults that are obsessed with Pokemon too out there right now.
They are.
But I'll date myself here. It is my favorite costume that I had when I was younger. I dressed as the Crow.
Oh, of course you did.
When that movie came out, I was all about throwing on the white face paint.
There you go.
Also, I was Sting. If we want to look at it from a
kind of the same
wrestling point
costume
of view too.
I was going to
Exactly.
say, versatile. You can wear that to two parties and just call yourself something else. Very well done, Merch. I know you're a big wrestling guy, so am I. So we'll talk wrestling after the show's done. But look, everybody, make sure you're syncing all of your teams to My Playbook, fantasypros.com/myplaybook, or just download the app. Use the Trade Finder. Use Trade Central. Use all the trade tools. Use them to make your team better, to get into the playoffs and win. That'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on. For Brandon and Andrew, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.